can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K, 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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Mark
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here in the Sick Podcast Network. I am Jimmy Murphy. He is Pierre McGuire. And today we will continue our Atlantic, or if you still want to call it the Adams Division, preview here as we wind down our NHL season preview. And we're going to focus on the Florida teams, the Florida Panthers, defending Stanley Cup champions, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. But Pierre, before we get into that, some interesting news. The Bruins, maybe in anticipation of not being without Jeremy Swayman, continue to build goaltending depth. Not that he will be on the Bruins roster, but more depth the better, I guess, when you're in their situation. And they pick up Jiri Patera. Anything you can tell us about him, or basically just a Providence depth guy right now?
No, I don't think so at all. He played 9 games for Vegas last year. He's a kid that played in the Czech Republic, grew up there. Came over, played in the USHL, played in the Western Hockey League with the Brandon Wheat Kings, and we know the tight affiliation between the Brandon Wheat Kings and the Vegas Golden Knights because of Kelly McCrimmon. And there's just been so many Brandon Wheat Kings that have flowed through the Vegas Golden Knights organization. So my take on it is he probably, or no, not probably, he did get beaten out by Aiden Hill and Ilya Samsonov. So Jiri Patera becomes the odd man out. They've got some young goalies down in the American Hockey League right now, Vegas does, so they probably said, we're probably convinced that Patera is going to get picked up. Akira Schmid, if you remember, came from New Jersey in the Paul Cotter trade. He's in Vegas right now, so they actually have him. He doesn't need a clear waiver, so he's gone down. Patera had to clear waiver. So sounds to me like Patera got beaten out by Hill, who's a Stanley Cup winner, and obviously Ilya Samsonov, who last played out in Toronto. So interesting. I don't know what this means for Brandon Bussey. I don't know what this means for Jiri Patera. But I do know one thing. Korpisalo is going to be starting opening night.
He is, no matter what. Even if Jeremy Swayman signs in the next hour, he's starting.
He's starting. So what we said the other day about Swayman, saying, and this is a few days ago, he won't be playing opening night. He's not playing opening night. So
no. And I know, as you said, maybe not even the home opener either.
Yeah. So, I know there's a lot of speculation about, what's going to happen where he is. But you see how proactive Boston has been since all this stuff hit the fan.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm not trying to there are tons of people that do our jobs, that do shows just like ours. Tons of them. Right? I didn't hear or read anybody saying what went on here. And that is when he said about going for, the
goalie market
players in the league and the marketplace for goalies. I just know what I said to you, and this is not good.
No.
And I don't know how that manifested itself. I don't know why that became part of it, because the whole negotiation seemed to be going relatively well. It was kept underground. There was no issues. There was no there probably was in the room, between both parties, but in public there wasn't. And so it was being perceived as a very polite, proper, intense negotiation.
Yeah.
And then for whatever reason, Jeremy spoke, and it just from there, it wasn't good.
No, it hasn't gone well since. And, that's why, Pierre, I went, and I had some people reach out to me and agree with me yesterday when I defended Cam Neely and defended the Bruins. Until yesterday, the Bruins had not gone that route. I mean, Don Sweeney had called out another podcast for some misinformation that they were spreading and some other reporters, but there was no direct comment on the negotiations or shot at the other side. So when he did that and everybody starts to vilify him, I just don't find it fair. I mean, you've got some reporters, and I'll say who it is. Frank Saravelli is just going off on Cam Neely for the last 48 hours, saying, he put his foot in his mouth and he should have shut up. And I think that's out of line. I don't think it's fair. I don't think what Cam Neely said to me is not as major as what Jeremy Swayman said over a month ago about setting the market. And for them to say that the Bruins were the ones to initiate the war of words is just not fair. And look, as we both said, we don't have a side in this, but I'm going to tell it like I see it. And it was the other way around, and I thought the Bruins were being unfair to Swayman, I would say that as well. But I don't think it's fair that Cam Neely's being vilified right now, and I'm going to stand by that.
Well, his responsibility is to ownership and the organization and the fan base. And he's got to have a big perspective on it. And this is when you're making those kinds of decisions, you can't pay attention to the noise that's surrounding you. You can't pay attention. And if you do, you're doomed to fail.
Yes.
You're doomed to fail. So you've got to get your most trusted people and your most intelligent people, and you've got to formulate a plan. And I think they have, and go forward from there. And I don't know what Frank said or didn't say. As you know, I don't do the social stuff. But what I would say comfortably is that this thing went off the track, and we talked about it that day when Jeremy said this is about the other goalies in the league and establishing marketplace. And I remember saying to you, I said, Jimmy, this is nothing but dangerous.
Yeah.
For this negotiation.
Yep. I'm with you on that. And Pierre, there's also just, I tweeted this as well today, but just for our listeners and viewers who may be confused, that's fine. It still happens. I get it. There's a difference between a restricted free agent and unrestricted free agent. And some people out there seem to think that Jeremy Swayman can just walk away from the Bruins right now. And that's not the case. If it was the case, he would already be gone probably because he would have been unrestricted and free to walk since July 1st. He never was. He never will be until, if he has a contract that expires on June 30th, 2026, he can then become an unrestricted free agent on July 1st, 2026, and choose his team without the Bruins having any say or whatever team he's with having any say. So right now, the Bruins hold the rights to him, and they will continue to do so. And, even if Jeremy Swayman comes back tomorrow or Friday after thinking about what Cam Neely said on Monday, says, I think it would be best that we part ways, the Bruins don't have to trade him. They're in no, position where they're forced to trade him at all. They hold the leverage in that. And as Pierre said yesterday, if they do decide to trade him, they will dictate where he goes, not Jeremy Swayman. So just to clear that up, because I see on social media, there's been a lot of confusion about that. A lot of people are saying Neely, when he said, gave all the leverage to Swayman. I think it's kind of the other way.
No, the leverage went to Swayman a little bit, and we talked about it on this show too, when Linus Ullmark was traded to Ottawa, and
Correct.
Swayman's contract wasn't dealt with before. That problem, and everybody's got an opinion on how they want to negotiate deals. That's fine, and they're entitled to it. But I can tell you that the power shifted in the negotiation from the team to the agent. The agent held the cards.
Mm-hmm.
The team holds the money. The agent holds the cards.
Right. So we will see where it goes from here. But there's been other stuff in the NHL. And one thing I want to look at, Pierre, before we get into the Lightning and Panthers, is that Senators-Canadiens game last night. A wild one, kind of a slap shot, throwback, old-time hockey game. Lots of hits flying, lots of fists flying. Look, I heard some people today on some radio shows saying, oh, we don't need that, and can we just get to the season? Hockey doesn't. I loved it. I thought it was great. I like a rivalry brewing there. And as you and I were texting back and forth with the Senators, Canadiens, and Red Wings kind of Buffalo in that same stage, one a little above the other. You can argue which way it is, but they're growing at the same pace. There's definitely the potential for rivalries amongst those teams. And look, Pierre, I mean, if you go back over the years since about 2013 when they played in the playoffs, there's been some pretty good battles between the Senators and Canadiens. It's a short distance. The fans can travel easily to one place or the other. Usually it's the Canadiens fans that travel a lot better and take over the Canadian Tire Center as well as the Bell Center. But I like it. It was fun. I don't like what Jack-Eye did. I think the hit was high. I don't think there was a need for that. I think there was other ways to solve. I get what he was doing. He's sticking up for a team. You're going to target one of our guys in Kirby Dark, then I'm going to target Tim Stützle, and that's that. But overall, I thought it was fun. I just don't want to see anybody get hurt. That's all.
So that thing got off the rails quick, and it happened when Timmy Stützle went after Brendan Gallagher. And what I was surprised at from the broadcast is that they didn't go back and didn't have a reference point on when I was there in Ottawa when it happened. It happened in Montreal when they said that Stützle was diving. And it was Brendan Gallagher that was really
Leads the
talkative
pack.
about it.
Oh, yeah.
He was really talkative.
Mhm.
And you saw what Timmy has a good memory, and Timmy's a smart kid. And I can tell you right now, you may think Timmy Stützle's a diver. He's not. He's a heck of a hockey player. Every
Yep.
team in the league would want Timmy Stützle.
Of course.
And his attitude is awesome. He's a tremendous kid.
Yeah.
And he gave it to Brendan pretty good. And as soon as I'm sitting there on my couch watching, I go, this thing's going to percolate. It's going to, because Brady.
Mhm.
Brady's going to get things going. And, that's just how it goes. And, took off from there. Now, the bad news about this, and I know the general manager in Ottawa, Steven Stales, has said, Tkachuk is fine, Shabbat's fine, Stützle is fine. Okay, I take you at your word. I believe you.
Yep.
I trust you. But that's 2 games in a row now that Brady had to come off.
Mm.
Yeah.
So
You get concerned. Brady plays a certain way, and you can try. You can try to talk to him.
Yeah, you can try and tame him, but it's not going to happen.
He plays a certain way, and that's why he's valuable, and that's why he's tremendous for that team.
But he's also your best player.
Yeah, and the problem is if he gets nicked up, that's going to be a major issue. The one concern I have for them, I think scoring, we talked about it, their scoring is going to be fine. They'll probably be upwards of 260 to 265 goals scored for, maybe more. But they'll be over the 250 threshold. I'm worried about their depth on defense. But watching it, and Sanderson is so good. He's so good. And Zub is really good on the right side. People don't talk about Zub enough. He's really underrated. But problem for Zub is he gets hurt.
Yes.
And don't forget Brandstrom left as a free agent. He went to Colorado. So they're short on the right side. They are, I'm telling you, because Hamonic is older too, and Travis is a great team guy, but he's older too. You start to look at the right side there; they're older, so you worry a little bit about that. But their team is better. Ottawa's better. They are better.
They are, and you made a good point yesterday too. Just sticking to the Senators' defense there, Pierre, is that they're going to hone in on Sanderson a lot more as time goes on here, and so he's going to have to withstand a beating at times. Not a fist beating. I'm just saying a physical beating, physical. And that, we'll see how his endurance is.
Jimmy, he's conditioned really well. That's one. Ridley, Gregg, and Sanderson are two.
Oh, that's where I want to go next.
You don't have to worry about their conditioning because I coached both their fathers, and both the dads were unbelievably fit guys and really determined guys in terms of conditioning, and both kids are the same. But here, what's happened in Ottawa, and look at Tommy Shabbat's he's a really good player. Jake's passed him. So, the target goes on Sanderson more than it goes on Shabbat. It used to be on Shabbat all the time. Some of the hits Tommy Shabbat used to have to take were unmerciful. But I think more of the target's on Jake rather than being on Tommy. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Gregg because he's something. I like this player. He's going to be such a good factor player, I'd like to call him, because I think every time he's on the ice, he plays a good role. He helps his team. He can score. He can also be physical. He's smart. He understands where to be, where to position himself. Really impressed with him. So as long as he's healthy, they're definitely in good with him. Pierre, one more thing about that game, and again, as we see it for the last week now, obviously on Saturday and even before that, with all the injuries mounting up, a lot of people campaigning to cut down the preseason. I text you. I said, look, I'd love to see 2 games chopped off, but I don't think the owners are going to go for it. But why don't you tell the listeners how you responded to that?
Yeah, so take 2 games off. You go down to 4 preseason games, and then you play 84 games rather than 82 games. It's happened before in the league. They used to play neutral site games. I have a good neutral site game story for you. Bruce McNall, before he got in trouble, he owned the advertising, the sideboard, the rink board advertising in the NHL. People don't know that. He controlled that. So we played in Saskatoon twice for neutral site games. Once we were playing there, we were playing against Winnipeg, the original Jets before they went to Arizona.
Okay.
And so is
this when you were with Hartford, Pierre?
Yeah, I was with Hartford.
Okay.
So we show up in Saskatoon, and I tell the trainers we're gonna have a skate the day we got there, even though it was a couple days before. So we go to the rink and we're skating, and I look at Johnny Forsland, who's our radio guy with Chuck Caton, and I say to both guys, "Are we in Saskatoon?" They're like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Look at the rink."
The boards.
Yeah, it's like the Conrad. If you remember the old Forum, the fabulous Forum in LA, we had the Conrad Hilton hotels that had all these different board advertisings compared to the rest of the league. Well, we had the boards advertising from LA. So I thought we were in LA. I was just joking with him. I said, "Look at that. Boards are the same ads as LA." And that was one where Johnny Paddock was coaching Winnipeg that year.
God bless.
We had a really good game going against them, and it was the late Mick Magoo called a high sticking on Mark Janssens, and they grew up in the same neighborhood in Regina. And Mark Janssens, was one of my favorites, who I had a privilege of coaching. Mark and Jimmy McGuire, who was Mick's brother, had played together, and came up with a high hit, and I forget, it might have been on Zamnoff. I forget who it was. And they called him for a double minor, and then he lipped off, and he got an unsportsmanlike.
Oh, jeez.
And I think we had a 6-2 lead. I think we did, or a 5-1. It was one of those. We had a big lead going into the third. And Phil Housley was on that team in Winnipeg. Like, they had really good power play. Teppo Newman, and everything was good for them. Zamnoff was there. They ended up coming back and beating us.
Oh, God.
So I went cuckoo, shocking. And I walked in the tunnel, and Mick was walking the other way, and I started screaming at him, and he's screaming back at me, and I was like, oh. And you know what? It was pretty neat. I want to say maybe it had to be 10 to 12 years later. We were on a plane together, and we had to sit next to one.
You and Magoo?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And actually, it was pretty good. We ironed it out. It was good, and we were friends until his passing. We always spoke whenever we saw one another, but we probably didn't speak for 10 to 12 years. But I don't know how we ended up sitting together on a plane. I forget where we were, but we ended up sitting together and talking it out.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Before we move on, I just somebody saw me tweeting about this earlier about the preseason, cutting the games or adding in the regular season. And this Danny Consister, who listens to us and he follows me on Twitter, Pierre, he wrote this in direct message, but he said I could use it. I thought it was a good idea. I'm going to read it to you now. They should have an early to mid-September preseason with rookies and only anyone that's played 100 games or less. 10 days or so, 2 games, not like the rookie games they play, but more geared like a real preseason game. In mid-September, you invite your 100-plus games guys, the regulars, and a handful of the guys from the first camp, but not all of them like it is today. So you invite, let's say you're looking at the Hudsons, the Celebrinis of the world, but really trim it down. 2 weeks, 4 games, that's it, drop the puck. And he said, he agrees with us, there's too many games. What do you think of this? So he wanted me to ask you that.
Oh, I think it's a great compromise. It's really smart, well thought out. I think that would get people's attention. I'm not sure they would go for it because there's a lot of, permutations.
CBA stuff.
Yeah, it's CB. Like, it's a lot of stuff that. But is it creative? Is it smart? Does it make sense? All of the above. I think it does. See, I like those ideas. Those are out of the box.
Outside the box. Yep, me too.
I really respect that. I think it's smart. Here's the one thing, though, Jimmy. Anything that it creates more cost kind of gets shot down fast. Mm-hmm. So you'd have to do a breakdown on what's the insurance cost to do it that way. Right. What's the travel cost to do it that way? What's the lodging cost? Like, I'm telling you, all this stuff is on line items, on budgets. Mm-hmm. And it's not as easy as just saying, throw it out there and do it. Yeah. It's really closely evaluated by every team, not just the small teams, all the teams, the big teams. Everybody looks at that. So I'll just tell you that one more quick one.
Yeah.
When I was coaching, we used to go play games in neutral site places because we were getting our travel costs paid and we were getting fees from the local promoters.
Uh-huh.
And depending on the city and the team you had, sometimes that would be $500,000 to $1 million, $500,000 to $1 million with all your travel. Back then, that paid a lot of your training camp budget and your travel budget for the year if you did 3 or 4 of those.
Right.
So, it's not the same anymore because everybody charters. But, that was a very good suggestion. I forget the gentleman's name, but it was very
Danny Consister. He watches us and follows me on Twitter.
But I don't think it'll happen, but it makes a lot of sense.
And then finally, one more preseason note. The Bruins and Kings are headed to Quebec City to play a preseason game tomorrow, Pierre. And I'm not sure if everyone around our viewership or listenership understands. A lot of people in Quebec are not too happy for this.
Yeah, $7 million payout from the province for them to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's great for the fans. Is it worth $7 million? I don't know if it is or isn't, but I do know one thing. When you see young people go to games, and I hope there'll be a lot of young people there,
right?
You see the reaction when they see the guys that they watch on TV,
especially in the warm-ups.
It's just so special. One of the best ones I ever had, and it really did bring a tear to my eye. I was coaching Hartford, and we were playing in Ottawa, and I want to say it was either the 22nd or 23rd of December. You have to look it up. It's in the early 90s. And there's a young boy with his father there. And the young boy was eating his popcorn, and he was just in awe. So I went down, and I saw our trainer, and I said, "Hey, we got any game pucks?" He goes, "Yeah, I'll get you one." So he gave it, and I walked up to the dad and put in the dad's hand. I said, "Here, give this to your son." And I walked back down, and I watched, and I stood in the aisle, and I watched, and he gave it to his kid. It was just amazing to watch.
That's awesome.
But you see that, and that makes you feel so good about the league because players do that all the time.
Yep.
Just nobody talks about, but I just think it's such a cool part of it. So that game in Quebec, all those little kids that get to go, even though I know it's a lot of money, I hope they're smiling from ear to ear.
What a memory you have, Pierre. Just like Scotty, December 23rd, 1993 at Ottawa. You guys won 2-1.
Yeah, I knew we won. So I think the first 9 games we played against them, we never lost. You'd have
against
to look
the Senators. Okay.
The first 9 games we never lost, and I know Rick Bonos was ticked off.
God bless Rick. All right, let's get into our previews here, and of course, after that, we will do our Q&A with you guys out there. Looking forward to that. But let's talk about the Tampa Bay Lightning first, Pierre. And the reason I want to talk about them first is because a good friend of yours, somebody you respect very much, just sold his share in the team, and that's Jeff Vinik. Not a surprise. We had heard about this, I think, as far back as a month. It was coming. But what does this mean for the team? And also, what's this mean for Jeff?
Oh, Mr. Vinik, I don't know what he plans on doing. I have so much respect for him, and I think you'll never hear a negative word from anybody.
No, I haven't.
About Mr. Vinik. No, never. Proud man, really proud father, great owner, phenomenal resource for the National Hockey League and Gary Bettman. I looked at the purchase price and I was going,
$1.3 billion. Yeah.
That was eye-shattering. I remember when it got to $1 billion. I think he bought the team for 330, somewhere around there. But people don't know this, Jimmy.
Wow, you're right. Yep.
He put $30 million of his own money into that building to make it more appealing to the fans.
Hockey feel, right? Yeah.
And it was great. He's just an awesome guy. And, he gets rewarded. His teams went to the Stanley Cup final 5 times. Mm-hmm. They went twice. They went 4 times when he was there. They win twice. They won, obviously, in 2004. He was not the owner in 2004. So, you look at it, couldn't be happier. I don't know what it means for the team, but for Mr. Vinik, I don't know if the hotels, he owns the JW Marriott, which is there right next to the rink. He owns the Marriott, which is across the street from the rink.
I've stayed there.
And then all those condos, he was involved in the development of all those condos there. I don't know what that means long term, but I'll tell you one thing. He's a very successful man.
He is. And I love what you mentioned, though, what he did for the team in that area. Because, Pierre, I remember going there when that team was starting off to Tampa Bay. Some people didn't even know they were there.
There was only one bar close. It was called Patrick's.
Yeah.
Patrick's, yeah.
Yep.
It's still there.
So it's still there, but now that whole place, I mean, everywhere you go, whether it's a game day or not, there's Lightning jerseys, Lightning flags, there's Lightning this, Lightning that. I mean, they're the buzz of the city, and he's a big part of that. So congratulations to him on the job he did for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And speaking of the Tampa Bay Lightning, Pierre, you and I were saying off air, prepping for the podcast today, we both still think they are a playoff team and plenty of scoring. You got to think, as you pointed out to me, Vasilevsky is going to be really motivated after a non-Vasilevsky type season. Not that it was bad, but it wasn't to his standards. I like this team, and you would hope that other coaches and scouts around the league aren't like some of the media and fans kind of, overlooking them and saying, oh, they're going to go on a downswing now and their time's over. Not so fast. You never know. And they might be able to sneak up on some people. We'll see.
So the pressure is going to be on Jake Gensel. You replaced Steven Stamkos, who was a 40-goal scorer. Steven Stamkos scored 555 career goals in Tampa.
Wow.
Regular season, 555. 40 of them last year. So that's pretty significant. So I was doing a tail of tape today. Stammer left. Barre Boulet left. Calvin DeHaan's gone. Anthony Duclair's gone. Matt Dumba's gone. Tanner Jeannot's gone. Mikhail Sergachev is gone. Tyler Mott is gone. And Cole Koepke's gone. There's some other guys that they didn't play enough so that you could really watch them. So there's a lot of guys out. There are a lot of guys that have left. But getting Gensel was huge. Getting Gensel was really big. Getting Cam Atkinson, I think, was really big. Getting Zemkins Girgensons is pretty substantial because of the role he's going to play there. Mitchell Chafee is a young player from your alma mater that I think has a chance to really take it up again. He was pretty solid last year, and I think he'll be even better this year. So they've got some good stuff. They do. I personally think they're a playoff team. Last year, they had 98 points. You get 98, you're going to be good. They scored 268 or 291, They gave up 268. So they had a solid goal differential, plus 23. If they score anything over 270 goals, they're getting in, and I think they'll do that.
And one guy I'm glad I won't have to stay up till 10 or later to see is J.J. Moser, Pierre. You and I have been a fan for him for a while. Not a lot of people know about him. That was, everyone was talking about what went to Utah in that trade and Sergachev, but don't shortchange the Lightning on this. They got a heck of a player.
Well said, Jimmy. And one of the more underrated guys in the league, I agree. It's a good story. So I get a friend of mine who's a head coach in the NHL, and he's watching them practice out in Arizona. And he says to one of their guys, he says, "Who's that guy?" He's pointing at Moser. And the guy goes, he's just a kid coming up. The guy was BSing. He really didn't know him at all because of what you said, stay up late, don't watch them. Not a fun watch at that time. And all of a sudden in the game, Moser just has a rip it up kind of a game. Yeah. And I know the coach was so mad at that guy. He says, "What do you mean? He's just a young kid coming up. He's a really good player," but he didn't know that. And so they didn't prepare properly for him. And but I think they got a real good player there, and I agree with you.
I do. I like that trade for them. All right, off to the defending Stanley Cup champions. And before we talk about them, I want to tell you and our listeners, I was texting back and forth with former NHLer and two-time Stanley Cup champion Sean Thornton, won it with the Ducks and, of course, with the Bruins, and trying to get him to come on a show. He's going to come on sometime soon. He's got an increased workload with his position down with the Florida Panthers now, which I was happy to hear. Good for him. He's found his niche there, and he's doing some great work for the Panthers, but we will get him on in the future. But, Pierre,
yes,
I think the big question, as it is with every Stanley Cup team, especially, you go 7 games, and as deep as they went, the short summer, do you fear for a Stanley Cup hangover? We know it's a real thing. Do you think it's going to strike them early, later, or not at all?
I'm going to say not strike it's not going to be a hangover. I don't know if they're going to win again, but I think they're going to be a really tough out. Getting Reinhart signed the way they did, Barkov, Verhaeghe, Rodriguez, Bennett, Kachuk, Lundell's going to take another step up. Will they miss Montour? They will.
Of course.
Will they miss Ekman-Larsson? The Ekman-Larsson that played at the end, they'll miss more than the Ekman-Larsson they had at the start. Nick Cousins, good depth player, but again, I think a guy like Lundell or Thomas Nosek, they replace him. The guy they're going to miss, I think, a pretty significant amount is Kyle Oposo. I think they're going to miss Ryan Lomberg. Like, there are guys there that they're going to – Tarasenko from the playoffs, Kevin Stenlund with faceoff. Like, there are guys that are gone. They're going to miss. But I still think the top of that lineup's so good, and they still have Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight, it sounds like, is really in a good place. Stolarz has moved on to Toronto, so they've lost a lot. But I do think Florida's going to be a really tough out. I expect they're going to cause a lot of problems. I don't think they'll finish first in the division, but I do think they'll be a home ice team.
I'm with you on that. And I look at too, Pierre, I was just thinking, about the job. And at first I'll come out and say, and I think I told you when he was hired, we weren't doing the podcast then, but I wasn't sure about the Bill Zito hire in Florida. And man, has he changed my mind. I look at the body of work he's done since he got there. He obviously built a champion, but he did it methodically. And if you go back and you just sort of look at some of his transactions and you look at the way he pieced a team together, pieced a roster. You just mentioned some of the guys they were forced to lose, unfortunately, but those are the type of players I'm talking about that were specific role players that knew their role. They weren't, the flashy type signings, but he did a great job of finding good role players to complement his skill. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for that.
I totally agree. I couldn't agree with you more. Now, he did inherit Barkov, and obviously one of the best two-way players. He got Verhaeghe away from Tampa. He got Reinhart away from Buffalo. He got Rodriguez when nobody wanted Rodriguez. He got Bennett away from Calgary when anybody could have had Bennett. Nobody wanted him. He stole Tkachuk out of Calgary, drafted Lundell. He was part of the drafting of Lundell. Got Gustav Forsling. I think Joel Quenneville played a big part in that as well. But Kulikov, Mikkola, all those guys. They bring in Nate Schmidt this year. Paul Maurice had him out in Winnipeg. So he listens to his people. I think he's done a really good job. And that roster, the top end of that roster is really special. It really is.
Yeah, and who knows how the playoffs will shake out, what teams get in, and what, some of those 7 or 8 seeds that could cause some noise in the first round and maybe pull some upsets. But, if health is good, if they play the way they can, I think there is a path for this team back to at least a conference final.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. But I'm not going to lie.
It's a hard road. It's a hard road.
I mean, they spent a lot of energy.
Look at the division.
You go back-to-back final, that's tough to do.
Yep.
And the travel, especially, the first year they got swept by Vegas.
Yeah.
Last year, a little different. Game 7 against Edmonton. That's pretty significant.
Remember the game where their flight had to sit in a runway forever too? And they flew in day of? I mean, there was an adventure.
There was no kidding. I agree. So it wasn't easy, but there are a lot of guys that they lost, just because of the cap, and they're trying to transition their roster, which I completely understand. But no, they've done a good job. I just think it's hard to do, Jimmy.
It really is.
Before I came on with you, I was talking to Scotty, and I'll never forget, the 91 Pittsburgh wins, 92 Pittsburgh, 93. The Pittsburgh Penguins probably had their best team, and they win the President's Trophy, and they get knocked out by, the New York Islanders.
Yeah.
And that team gets broken up, and the Penguins start to, flounder.
Yeah. It's very hard.
Scotty goes to Detroit, and everything just changes.
Does it again there. He's unreal. Can't wait to have him on. Pierre, we're going to get him on, I hope, before the season opens, maybe? Yeah. I think we should make that a eye test tradition, having Scotty preview.
He's got to come on more than once. I mean, he'd be
of course.
But
the start of the season, the season doesn't start in the eye test without Scotty. That's the way I look at it. All right, let's get to our Q&A right now. But before we do, let's tell you about Betway. And, I thought I was a little crazy, but how about those Tigers? How about those Detroit Tigers? And they're winning again right now, 1-0 in the bottom of the 7th against Houston. If they win today, they advance to the division series because it's only 2 out of 3 in the wild card round for baseball now. But you want to go over there if you want to bet some MLB, plenty NFL and college football for you to bet on as well. And of course, the NHL season now less than a week away. The season opener, of course, is a week from yesterday. The Bruins and the Panthers will raise their Stanley Cup banner. But plenty of stuff to do over at Betway because they are the leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go to betway.com, or if you're watching right now, you can put up your phone there and scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 plus and play responsibly. go to betway.com right now. And of course, our other sponsor, Homage. And, I was actually I was doing a little browsing there last night, Pierre, because I told him I'm jumping on that Tigers bandwagon. So I think I'm going to get a Tigers shirt. I found one with the man I referenced yesterday, Alan Trammell, on a T-shirt. So I might have to purchase that after our conversation yesterday. I went on there. Go over there. They've got so much retro stuff for people, maybe the generation before me or my generation or Pierre's. They've got no LK line, Pierre, unfortunately. But I got to tell you, before we came on, the announcers were talking about him a ton, and I was thinking
he was a legendary player.
Was a legend. But check them out. They've got the current stuff as well. Really good designs. And as I've bragged about it before, the fabric is unreal. This is actually a Homage shirt, my Liverpool shirt right there. So go check them out. They specialize in ultra comfy, high quality looks, repping sports, pop culture, and more legendary moments. Learn more about Homage with the link in the description. All right, let's go to the Q&A. What do we got? Alex Ivanowski. What's up, Alex? Where do Mason Lohrei and Matthew Poitras stand with the Bruins right now? Are they still bullish on both? Poitras had a great start last year. Alex, I'll say Poitras has been one of the best players to me in camp. And one of the reasons I'm so impressed with him, there was no griping. There was no sulking. They said, kid, you're going to the wing. And he's taken advantage of it. He sees the opportunity. I think he's really impressed them. Now, he could be playing center once the regular season starts, depending on how things shake out with the lineup in the next 6 days or so. I don't know. But I like him on the wing. I think he'll eventually go back to center full time, but I don't think he's ready yet. And he's put on some size, but he just needs a little more seasoning. He's been very impressive. Lohrei, I've been impressed with as well. There's always a potential, it's a sophomore jinx, Pierre. Sometimes that happens to these kids, but I think he's got a great future, and I know the team is very high on him.
Yeah, they're high on both players. And Jimmy's right. Both guys got significantly bigger in the offseason, 15 to 20 pounds, and not fat, strong, good weight. Lohrai's got a chance to be on the second power play. It looks like he'll be there. He'll have increased minutes. I don't think either player is going down to the American Hockey League. They'll be in Boston, I believe.
They'll be on the roster. And I like, with Lohrei on D and also Poitras on the wing, Pierre, or back at center, it gives them flexibility right now because their bottom six, I think, is still in flux, and it could be into the season, as it was for a long time last year. And one more thing I want to say too, Pierre, and the Bruins, they got Geeky now on the right wing on the second line. He had a really good season last year. A lot of people are saying, what is he doing on the wing on the second line? I thought he was one of their best players in the playoffs. So I think he's earned that. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, let's check it out. Yeah, I agree.
Yep. All right, next question. Jacques Lachance. Can anybody make an offer sheet on Swayman?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Sure they could.
Yep. But the Bruins have to have the right to match it or say sayonara. That's their choice. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski again. I was reading some Red Wings overview articles in The Athletic. How come so many experts are down on their young guys? They went hard after Siders past season as well. Where is the disconnect?
I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe they're not watching enough games.
Raymond's really good. Larkin, tremendous. Simon Edvinsson is going to be really good. They've got,
as we said, goaltending. That's it, Pierre. That's the only question mark to me.
They've got elite prospects in goal.
Yep. Yeah.
You don't rush goaltending. Lucas Raymond, how many guys scored like him around the league that are, 22 or younger? Not a lot.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah.
Carter Mazur is going to be a good player. Everybody's in a rush. Carter Mazur is going to be good. The kid out of Denver. We've talked about him a lot on the show. They've got players there. I mean, young guys that are good. I think Horkoff, I think Draper, they do a real good job for Steve Eisman. I think they do. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out, but I think they're all growing. They're four teams: Detroit, Buffalo, Ottawa, Montreal. They're all growing about at the same pace. It's going to be really hard in that division.
And look, this reminds me, and I think I told you I want to bring it up quick today, and I will now, is I did that story on rg.org, Pierre, I sent you on Greg Cronin talking about his team and what he said about Leo Carlsson. And I asked him, is there one thing you didn't expect to see that kind of surprised you about him? He said, well, I read all these stories in The Athletic or what have you, and all these scouting reviews and scouting reports, and everybody was down on his skating. They really were. And they said that was one of the reasons he could drop in the draft was his skating. And the kid comes over here and he said, Murph, I can't tell you the breakaway speed he had, the stride he has, just his tenacity to combine with that speed. He says, I thought, honestly, he goes, I appreciate what some of these people do, but you can't really know until you see them play. And hence the title of our podcast,
Correct.
The Eye Test. All right, next question. Good name. Fuck's sakes. We're going to be hearing a lot of that in a few weeks, Pierre, or 6 weeks to be exact, in Belfast. Do you expect any? Fuck's sakes, Murphy. Do you expect any team in the Atlantic to be worse than last year? That's a good question. I know we're talking about all the teams that are going to jump and rise. The Bruins, I think, are up in the air, obviously, with the Swayman situation. But they always seem to find a way.
I don't think anybody's going to be a lot worse.
No. Will they drop a slot or something? Maybe. Toronto, maybe.
I think Florida could drop a slot, but I don't think they're dropping out of the playoffs if that's what the questioner means.
No.
I
think we see more of that in the Metro, Pierre, than the Atlantic.
Well, that's for sure. I think what'll be interesting with Carolina in the Metro, what's going to happen with Carolina in the Metro, what's going to happen with Washington in the Metro. Do they jump up or do they drop back? And can Philly be as good as they were last year? And if they are as good as they were last year, they're a real viable team to make the playoffs. If they're not as good, they won't make it this year. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Randy Workman, who do you see as the most improved team in the NHL this season?
So I think I think Anaheim can be one of those teams. I could be way off base, and if I am, I'll apologize right away. If they stink, I'll be kind of bummed because I think they're going to be a lot better. I really try to study these rosters, top to bottom, depth of prospects, and everything else. And they were about as low as you could go last year, Jimmy. And I think that they have a chance to be better. I really do.
Yeah. I don't think they're going to be drastically better, but I do think San Jose makes some progress. I think, and it's not hard. You can't really go too far down after what they had.
You see what happens. So Celebrini gets hurt last night in a preseason game, falling, awkwardly into the boards.
Yeah.
And so, it doesn't seem like it's serious, but who knows?
Right.
But if he goes out for a long time, out for a long time, or Tyler Toffoli goes out for a long time, you got problems.
Yeah, but I'm with you on Anaheim. I really like the strides they're making there, and they've got tons of cap space.
Utah's another one that could be significantly better.
I'm with you on that as well. All right, next question. Marvin Matthews, which Florida D-man will replace Montour's offense? That's a good question.
I think it's either going to be Gustav Forsling, honestly, or Nate Schmidt. Different. He won't be as good offensively, but he can transport the puck. Nate can.
Yep.
So
smart player.
What's interesting on that one is Montour's representative is the guy we have on here a lot, Matt Cater.
Yes. Yep.
Nate Schmidt's agent is Matt Cater too.
Oh wow. They switched spots.
I'm gonna put Montour out in Seattle where he's gonna hit the mother load.
You're gonna take his spot in Florida.
We're gonna get him in Florida.
That must happen a lot with agents.
He's doing some good work.
He does. He does. I hope he's watching and listening. I hope you're good, Matt. All right, next question. Randy Workman. Vladar is in trouble in Calgary, Jimmy. He might have lost his job this season. I'd agree.
Well, Dustin Wolf is very popular there.
Mm-hmm. But Pierre, we talk about Russia.
I like Dustin Wolf. You know that.
Is he big enough, though?
I'm concerned about, and I don't mean height. I'm worried about, is he big enough to take it every day? I just don't know. Until you do it, you don't know, and I haven't seen him do it yet.
Be interesting to see how they start to build the D in front of him with him in mind, and maybe that he might not be able to handle it. Are they able to put those trees in front of him? We
don't like to speculate on trades, but you read it too much. You have to talk about it. Is Rasmus Anderson staying there or is he leaving there?
My gut is he's gone by the end of this season, by the trade deadline. That would be my gut. It really would.
He and Uyghur are their two best D-men right now.
Yep. And again, I don't like to speculate, but look up front. Kadri, I just have a weird feeling about that. No, nobody's told me that. It's just my gut.
I can't go there just because I know that. I just don't know about that one. I don't know.
We'll see. All right. Somebody just said, what about Kadri? As I said. All right. Next question. Randy Workman. Flames top prospects. I'm going to murder this name. Is it Brustowitz?
It's close enough.
All right. Have been talk of the town. Talk of the town. What do the Flames coaches tell them when they both get sent down? Well, Pierre told you this. Yeah.
You're getting close and keep working and all positive, not negative.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just take one step back for a second. This is for our viewers and listeners. Jimmy and I talked about this today. Kevin Korchinski was a first-round pick of the Chicago Blackhawks. Very good player last year. He was minus 39. Okay? And I wasn't being a smarty pants. He was a good player for them, but he was minus 39. They rushed him into the league, Jimmy, on a bad team. And so what's the message today when he gets sent down to Rockford? The message was, well, we want him playing all the time and we want him to get his confidence back. No, you guys broke his confidence last year.
I know.
Go look at all the newspaper articles. Yeah. Go look at all the TV coverage.
There was no need to have him up for that.
Minus 39.
Yeah. And that's not all in him. I mean, look at the team around him.
No, and every time I'd watch that, I was in pain watching it because you know how good the kid is. Go watch his team from Seattle when he played in the Western Hockey League.
Pierre, do you think part of this, when teams do that and they get so caught up, they want the young kid, they want him to arrive, they want the future to be now. Is it the cap and just the pressure on GMs to compete and win under the cap makes them make some bad decisions like that? Do you think that plays a huge role?
That could be part of it. The other part is everybody wants to show the fans and their owner how smart they are.
Good they're scouted. Yeah.
Look at us. We're smarter than everybody else. We drafted this guy and he's ready to play as an 18 or 19-year-old. And then all of a sudden you're like, that wasn't such a good idea. Wow. And so maybe you're not as smart as you thought you were. It's a hard league. And it's been, you know what? It's never been harder to play in. And everybody can say what they want. Oh, the 6-team league was hard. The league has never been more full of great players. There are guys doing stuff. I'm not dropping names. I'm going to just state a fact. I was out with Marion Lemieux this summer, and we were talking in the afternoon. His brother Richard was there with us, and we were talking about Connor McDavid, and we were talking about Nathan McKinnon, we were talking about Sidney Crosby. And we're talking about Mario, whether you liked him or hated him, he's one of the top 3 players in the history of the game. It's not even debatable. He's one of the top 3 of all time.
Agreed.
And it depends on, I have him at 1, but Bobby Orr could be 1. Wayne Gretzky could be 1, but he's in the top 3. Anyways, he said, Pierre, these guys are doing stuff I could never have thought of. He says that to me, and he's serious.
Yep.
And he marveled. He couldn't believe. He says, "I'm watching Connor McDavid do stuff at speeds that I couldn't even think about."
It's insane. It's insane.
The league has never been better. The players have never been better. Never.
Yeah.
What Crosby's doing at 37 years of age is unbelievable.
Perfect segue, Pierre. That's where it's going to go. The conditioning has never been better either. The way the knowledge they have about nutrition and what muscles to always work on, and just the awareness they have of their health is a huge factor in that as well.
You don't have to say names. I sent Jimmy some tape today to study of a college team. Okay, but don't say any names. Just I sent it to you.
Nope.
You see how fast and skillful some of those plays are.
It's insane.
That's at a Division I college.
Yep.
So I'm going to say on that team, 4 to 5 guys will play in the NHL.
Yeah.
4 to 5 from one college team.
And that's more common now. It's
and I'm telling you, from their team a year ago, right now, they've got 2 guys still on NHL rosters from 3 years ago. They got 4 guys on NHL rosters.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
it's just
I get it. Mario's dead on.
the game's never been better, ever.
Yep. We're lucky. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, watch Kirby Doc's fight last night. I know he got a bunch of Montreal fans. We got a bunch of Montreal fans here, but I got to say, I got major Ryan Getzlaf vibes from watching him play. Am I being too optimistic? I wish he'd have Getzlaf's health. That would be nice. I don't think it's too optimistic.
It's not. No, it's okay. It's fair. A lot of people thought he'd end up like Getzy. He's not as good an athlete as Ryan Getzlaf. Ryan Getzlaf's an unbelievable athlete. I'm telling you, like, he could have been a pro football player. His brother was in the CFL. He was an amazing baseball player growing up in Regina. But here's what I would say the difference is. Kirby Doc's a good playmaker. He's not as good a playmaker as Ryan Getzlaf. Ryan Getzlaf was an amazing, not just good. He was an amazing playmaker.
Yeah.
Like, spectacular playmaker.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether it was World Juniors that I had a chance to cover him, huge NHL playoff games, 07 Stanley Cup final, Olympic game, you name it. Like, I had a chance to
all
see
those battles when they would go to the conference final. Yeah.
Yeah, all the vintage moments of Getzlaf's career, I had the privilege of being there. Spectacular talent. Spectacular. His playmaking in that era. So let's say, he's drafted, he's part of the 03 draft. So let's just say we kick it in starting in 05. Let's just say for the sake of argument.
He came back.
From there forward, hard pressed to find many guys that were better playmakers than him.
He was amazing.
You know, Crosby would be one of them.
And his size too.
Discussion. Yeah. You know, you start with his size and his strength. Kopitar would be one of them. You start looking at, they're not a lot. Like, you're talking in that era. There's just not that many.
Do you see a little of him in Leo Carlson?
Yes. You know what? And I don't want, like, I know it's a bad rivalry, so I don't want anybody getting mad at me. And Jimmy asked me a question. I see a lot of Kopitar in him. You know, like I see some Kopitar, and I know, like, Kings and Ducks, it's just like, it's no good.
Yep.
But, you know, I remember seeing Kopitar in 05 at the World Championships. He was just a kid before his draft. They told you that story numerous times in Innsbruck. And I was like, oh, my gosh, this guy is so good. And then, you know, you see Carlson, you're like, oh, my gosh, this guy's really good. You know, and I was a Fantilli guy. I'm not even going to pretend. I told Cater that Cater's Leo Carlson's agent. I said, I know they're both good, but I like Fantilli better. But then I see Carlson playing. I'm like, they're different. Gosh. They're just different, you know.
They're good in their own ways. Yeah.
Kopitar was not Mike Modano. He wasn't.
No.
But Mike Modano wasn't Kopitar. You know, Fantilli is not Leo Carlson, but Leo Carlson's not Fantilli. Yeah. You know, you know, that's just kind of how I see it.
No, there's some great young players coming up. And again, Anaheim's going to improve. All right, next question. A to Z Me says, a lot of Habs fans are obsessing about Reinbacher and Mailloux without mentioning how good Struble is looking. A lot of people buzzing about Struble after that game last night. Yeah. What are your thoughts about his game and future in the NHL? I'll let Pierre take this because Pierre's been talking about him since he was going to my alma mater, St. Sebastian's.
Yeah, no, I'm a big Struble guy. Look, sometimes the wires get a little cross with him, but he played really well last night against Ottawa. He was really good. That's an elite question from A to Z Me. That's really good. Struble is a little under the radar now because of all the scrutiny going on the young guys, especially with the Reinbacher injury. I'm encouraged for him. You know, his big break, I think, came when they traded Jordan Harris to get Patrick Laine. I think it opened up some room for him, Jimmy. And so he's taken advantage of it. I've never seen him look fitter. I've never seen him look more poised. And he looks like he's way more disciplined.
I was just going to say, he's picking his spots a lot better, Pierre. Totally agree.
So,
you know?
Yeah, I would say that's a real good pickup by A to Z Me. I'd say.
And you know what, Pierre? You mentioned him. You mentioned Mailloux, you know, and some of the other guys, like Jack Guy. Yeah. We've talked about a concerted effort for speed and size and all that with the Canadians right now. But look at the concerted effort of grit and toughness they've been drafting over the last 3 years since Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes came on board. They know, they read, like some other teams have, they read the tea leaves of where this league is going right now. We've talked about it many times, what's been winning in the playoffs. And that's been on display in this preseason. I've been really impressed with just that common trait throughout the Montreal lineups.
The guy that's going to probably be the beneficiary of Reinbacher, and I didn't think he was going to play in the NHL this year, is Justin Barron.
Yeah.
Who looked solid last night.
Because they would have had to send him down, right?
Yeah,
and he would have got picked up. Yeah.
He would have been picked up. So I think he would have been picked up. So I think he gets an opportunity to stay in Montreal. But no, Logan wasn't good last night. He just wasn't good enough. And so he's going to have they went to Montreal to spend a few days before they play in Ottawa Saturday night.
Smart move. I love those bonding trips.
About 125 miles north of Montreal, give or take. And so this is a big opportunity for him if to get grounded and get focused and listen to the coaches and try to find a way to squeeze into the lineup.
Well, we shall see. It's going to be interesting to see who does make the final cuts there on that blue line. All right, next question. Bill Shahidi. Hey, Bill. Jimmy and Pierre, all the attention is on the Habs PP, and I get why, but I believe it will get better with Hudson. But the PK has been just as bad. What do they need to do there to improve?
They're going to get their group together. I watched them last night. They were just people over the board, so there was really not a lot of structure. Like I said, they're going to Montreal right now, Bill, and so I would think they're going to start to implement a lot of their organizational ideology for special teams and face-off plays, neutral zone structure, in-zone coverage, all that stuff will start to go into place over the next couple days. So I think it will be better. Part of it is, and I saw this all preseason so far, Jimmy, they're not doing a good job getting in the shooting lanes. Their forwards just aren't. And so they're going to have to – if you watch Carter Yekmenchuk's goal last night, he just blows it right by everybody. There's nobody in the lane.
Yeah. I saw somebody actually was asking there. I don't know who it was, so we'll have to find it if you can, Shane. Do you think he makes the team? Or should he go down?
Yakimchuk's really good, and I think he's got a legitimate chance. Now, I don't know how they do it, but remember we were talking before, the depth of their defense isn't great. It's one of the things. Probably their best call-up potential guy is Max Gannett. He's down in Belleville now. But it's not a deep defense. And so I don't know. I know everybody liked to make Branstrom the whipping boy there, but he was still a serviceable player.
I thought,
he could
skate. Good pairing guy.
Colorado, I mean, they're a good team. So
yeah,
but I do think Yakimchuk has a chance to be on their team. I do.
All right.
They could keep him for 10 games and then send him back too. Give him a dry run. It works.
All right. Next question. Vincent Yoel. Hello, gentlemen. Looks like the Habs are great, full of depth. If they send Kapanen back to Europe, can he be recalled? Is Demidov only available if Scott cancels his contract?
So let's take the last one first. Demidov will be available when his contract's over. They're not going to cancel his contract, especially now that Kuznetsov got hurt. It's a long-term injury.
Yeah, and he's their star power.
Yeah. So, no, he's not going. He's staying there. And in terms of Kapanen, no, if he goes – they could keep him here and then send him back and then finishes the season there, and then he comes back when they're done. But once he goes, he goes. But he can't go to the American Hockey League this year. He's got to go back.
All right, and I think that's it, is what Shane's telling us. So thank you to everyone. Well, did we get one more in? No, I don't know. No questions. No. Okay. Gabriel Lamb did want to say again, he appreciated you complimenting his avatar for Johnny Gaudreau. And Pierre, by the way, I'm glad he brought that up.
Really
all the teams are going to wear the decal. I don't know if you saw that, so that's great.
I did not, but I'm happy to hear that.
They will all have that this season. So.
How about Torch? How about the job Torch is doing?
Class.
You know what? Think twice before you start jumping on Torch. It just that's really good.
Pierre, it's funny you say that. I think that narrative is starting to get dispelled. I've seen a lot of people sway to pro Torch that used to be anti-Torch. So I'm glad to see that because he's a class act. All right. Thank you to you, Pierre. Thanks to Shane working the boards. And tomorrow we will finish up our Atlantic Division preview and our NHL preview. We'll do more with Scotty Bowman next week. But Pierre and I will finish up our division previews. We'll talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Boston Bruins. Of course, we've been talking a lot of Bruins since Jeremy Swayman situation got a little cuckoo this week. We'll see what tomorrow brings. But until then, he's Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. This has been another edition of the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.